Shalom, shalom, shalom. Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Mashiach Yahweh Shai. All praise, peace, love, and power to the Father of light, Yahweh and his beloved Son, Yahweh Shai. Peace and blessings to the throne of King David and to you out there, the sons and daughters and the elect of Israel. All praises. Keeping my little eyes peeled. Getting to where you can't do nothing, y'all. You know, we got a demotion out here. You know what they call Lancaster now? They call it the Compton of the desert. Ain't that fucked up? But it is, man. They done had like 2 or 3 stabbings in the last couple of months at the same damn place. Right? Killed them too. At Jack in the Box. I call it Stab in the Box now. I think I told y'all about that. Then, over where I get my car washed at, all right? They kill a nigga and stuffed him in a trash can. Stuffed him in there just, That fucking 8 CSI agents over there and shit, man. I'm like, damn, the fuck? And now these niggas up here arguing at the park. You know? I'm hoping this old drunk ass nigga get on. But, hey, y'all, shit getting real fucked up out here, okay? Little man was behind me, had his little daughter and his wife out there. They trying to enjoy a good day at the park. Yeah, man. Cali got some good weather, man. But other than that, man, hey, man, these niggas be tripping, right? Used to kind of laugh at Lancaster, man. But now, shit, Lancaster done got their weight up now. You know? Used to have busters come up here from L.A. that couldn't hang down there. They moved out here. Me, I moved out here to get away from their ass. And now, these niggas coming out here, but shit. Now, they getting bona fide killers out here. So, they shut down a lot of them projects out there. What is it? Jordan Downs for one. And I see a lot of them niggas out here. And, of course, we got some bebops out here, too. So, from the red side. So, now they turning this shit into L.A. So, if they keep going, man, like I say, shit got to get bad. These people mounting up, man, and all these crackers, man, they training and shit. Seeing videos, man, that they getting ready. They getting ready for that they little race war. They want that, you know. And these niggas, y'all remember the other one? Breathe, brother, breathe, body shot. We gonna see what that shit gets your ass. But anyway. I want to continue the lesson, man. So many distractions, you know what I mean? So many distractions. But the work don't stop, right? I'm out here to do my thing. So, let's go to Salems Story chapter 7. We still dealing with old bitch-ass Samael. Stole a scepter from my man Melchizedek. Let's read the epilogue. Faithful subjects, oblivious to betrayal, raise songs of triumph and expectation of the coronation of their king. So they getting ready to bring on Melchizedek in, not even knowing that this old bitch-ass nigga stole the damn scepter, man. The coronation is truncated due to the absence of the scepter. Everyone grieves, and Melchizedek comforts them with the promise of rescuing the precious scepter. Melchizedek goes out in his search of Samael, full of anger, scrapes the inscriptions engraved on the scepter. Melchizedek faces dangers in search of the scepter and is preserved. So Melchizedek knew he had to get that scepter back. All right. He like, I can't let him walk with this. So he set out on a mission by himself to get it back. Starting at verse 1. As they approached Mount Zion, they climbed the very white steps of the stairs, being followed by the triumphant crowd. It hurt in his soul the expectation of seeing his cheerful song die on the lips of the faithful that morning due to the betrayal. He was now inside the palace, before the magnificent throne that awaited the young king. At the base of the throne, the parchment of the laws lay open, in the middle of a floral arrangement. Next to him, you could see the beautiful crown made of gold and precious stones, as well as the case of that scepter that symbolized all the harmony of Salem. Verse 3. The subjects were happy, for they knew they would be found worthy of to inherit that kingdom of peace. They were waiting for the moment of the coronation when their new king will rule them from his throne with his precious scepter. In a triumphant chant. Amid the applause of the victorious host, Melchizedek turned to his father, who received him with a warm hug. Oh shit. Now this nigga that made it over here.
You might like this shit. You must like this shit. You might like getting spiked up, right? Because to me, you making me feel like you like getting spiked up.
Y'all see this nigga? When are we gonna get the fuck out of here? When? This nigga walking like he shitted on himself. Anyway, y'all, get on back to the lesson, man. Get out here. Damn. All right. My apologies, y'all. This world is going mad. He cussing out the goddamn gardener. All right, verse 3. The subjects were happy, for they knew they would be found worthy to inherit that kingdom of peace. They were waiting for the moment of the coronation when their new king will rule them from his throne with a precious scepter in a triumphant chant. Amid the applause of the victorious host, Melchizedek turned to his father, who received him with a warm hug. The moment was truly solemn. The hosts were silenced in anticipation of the coronation. The case would be opened and everyone would witness the exaltation of the beloved prince. With his heart pounding with joy, Adonijah bent down to the case, opening it carefully. When finding it empty, the joy of his countenance gave rise to an expression of inexpressible concern and sadness. For in that scepter the fate of that kingdom of peace had been sealed. Verse 6. Seeing his father and all the subjects afflicted by the absence of the scepter and so many friends who would be with them at that time, Melchizedek comforted them with the promise that he would seek the scepter, unaware of the risks and dangers that awaited the prince on his way. The subject said goodbye to him, watching him leave in haste. The dawn of that day, which would be that of the coronation, reached the distant rebels of Salem, en route to the cities of the plain. On that morning, Samael was filled with fury when he saw that his precious loot was adorned with inscriptions of the laws contained on the scroll. Taking a pointed stone, he began to damage the scepter, scraping away all the words of love and justice. His harmonious strings were now in the tune over his wounded convex part, but he was still beautiful, for Salem's domain lay sealed on him. Owning it meant being the owner of all power. Y'all see how much people hate righteousness, man, and being in peace? They got some people, man, they can't stand it when you at peace. They hate it. They got to come and try to fuck it up. You see? Verse 8. When he reached the height where the road branched, Samael ordered his followers to continue towards Gomorrah, while he would go to Sodom, where he remained for 2 days, joining them later. He waited for the night to enter Sodom. When he entered there, he walked through the narrow streets without being noticed, until he found an isolated house on an elevation. Making the scepter his weapon, he invaded the house, killing his inhabitants while they slept. He thus took possession of that residence where, alone, he would machine his plans for the sale of Salem. So he done took the thing, man, and used it as and weaponized it to kill people with. Ooh, this nigga was something else. Verse 10. The evening of that day, which would be the coronation, reached the son of Adoniah as he walked along the stony path to the valley. His eyes were full of sadness, and anxiety turned to the ground, looking for the traces of the rebels. The memory of the ingratitude of those whom he loved so much made him cry. His tears, reflecting the last flashes of that setting sun, resembled drops of blood flowing from his wounded heart. Sound familiar? When Yahushua was in the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed so hard his sweat became as drops of blood, man, order of Melchizedek for real. He cried not because of the dangers that came upon him on that cold night, but because of the unhappy fate of those who had changed Salem's peace because of the violence of those cities in the plain. His only consolation was the memory of those who, despite all the temptations, had remained faithful. They had been promised to return the scepter, and this would be achieved despite any sacrifice. Verse 12. After a long night of insomnia, when the prince was lying on the side on the road, he streaked the light of a day that would be decisive. As he approached Sodom on that morning, the thought of being so close to the scepter of his beloved Salem made him forget all the fatigue, shortening his steps toward the challenge. When the great gate of the city opened, a fear came upon him, upon hearing frightful noises of disharmony, which translated to pride, selfishness, and greed that dominated all hearts, making them explode in an orgy of endless evil. So that the city sounded wicked, you know. It would be a great risk to expose yourself to the free violence of that city. This thought made him pause at a step from the portal, where he shuddered, bowed his forehead in an inexpressible internal struggle. He was tempted to retreat, but struggled with all his soul forces against the thought of failure. Man, do y'all see what's happening, man? Do y'all get it? This is at the same point when Yahushua said, Father, if it be at all possible, let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. Everything that Melchizedek is doing, man, Yahushua mirrored it in his ministry. You see what I'm saying? Look at verse 16. Thinking of Salem's sad fate, whose dominion was being trampled inside cruel Sodom, Melchizedek made a firm decision. As a reckless warrior, he would have to move forward, and certainly even if he had to face the accumulation of all the dangers, he would continue until he raised in his victorious hand the beloved scepter. Resolute and hopeful, he went through Sodom's door, diving into that strange world. Everything there was the opposite of Salem, beginning with the rough and dirty stones of its constructions. Sodom was a kingdom of darkness. Verse 18. The contrasting presence of the prince was soon noticed by many who, in tumult, surrounded him. The purity of the character expressed in his great face and splendor of his garments filled them with horror, and they retreated as defeated by an invisible force, dominated by fury. They began to chase him from a distance, determined to make him flee. He was thrown stones and mud trying to stain his clothes, but they did not hit him. Meanwhile, he advanced in his anxious search. They finally gave up chasing him at sunset. Damn. They chased Melchizedek all day, man. Same thing as Yahushua, man. Pharisees, the wicked always want to chase the righteous, man, to try to make them give up. Try to make them give up their righteousness. That's why all of these punk ass niggas is on here. They trying to chase me down, throwing rocks and everything to make me give up what I'm doing. Ain't gonna happen though. No. Y'all know in all these years I've never once even considered, not even an inkling, not even a thought way in the back of my head of quitting. That's never entered in, you know. I just formulate my next plan to make them look stupid, and I always get it. But just to show y'all, man, I'm gonna be dipping in teaching this lesson, man, to show you where these wicked ass niggas come from, all right, and why they're like they are. They have no peace, and they don't want you to have any either, all right. So we're gonna go to Salems Story chapter 8. We'll read the epilogue. Melchizedek, after much affliction, finds the precious scepter that was destroyed by Samael. The prince's dignified stance before the traitor's threats, his firm willingness to redeem the scepter at any cost, pain and blood as the price of the scepter's rescue, the atonement of Melchizedek to redeem the scepter, a likeness of atonement of a Mashiach to redeem mankind. Y'all ready for more? All right, let's get it. Starting at verse 1. The son of Adoniah traveled all the streets and alleys in search of the beautiful scepter, but it was in vain. Seeing the sun decline on the horizon, announcing the arrival of a dark and cold night, his heart was in great agony. There in the last valley, almost defeated by the exhaustion of despair, he bowed his forehead, fainting in tears. His lips pronounced in the middle of sobs the following words: Salem, Salem, you can't perish. Your scepter needs to be redeemed from the grip of rebellion. But when and where will I find it? There are no more forces left in me, and the hope of redeeming him before night leaves me. The prince, in his supreme anguish, did not perceive that another groan of pain coming from busted strings of a humiliated lute was heard in that evening. Suddenly, the weak groan penetrated his ears, reviving him with the certainty that the great moment of redemption had come. Drying his tears, she gathered the last forces running in the direction of a small house on a hill, where the sound seemed to come from. As he went to the door between the open, he stooped when he contemplated a contrasting scene of humiliating slavery. Samael, wrapped in a dirty cloak, punished Salem's scepter. Both the young man and the scepter were so disfigured that there was almost no feature of the lost glory in them. That scepter, however, certainly raised as it was very valuable, for in it lay the seal of Salem's dominion. The contemplation of the one who had been his best friend and of that idealized scepter as a symbol of all harmony in such a tragic condition deeply moved the prince, making him cry loudly. Only until then did the rebel subject perceive his unwanted presence. Shivering, he got up and, full of anger, asked him, "Who brought you to Sodom?" Indicating towards the damaged scepter. Melchizedek exclaimed, "Salem's glory is destroyed." With the last, Samael mocked his sadness, saying, "Now I am the king of Salem. You who are faithful to the parchment will become my slaves." Without giving importance to Samael's words to affront, the prince, moved by infinite anguish, said, "Samael, Salem is hurt by your betrayal. Why did you change your home of justice and love for this valley of injustice, hate and death? Now if you do not wish to return to Salem, return the scepter. It was to redeem it that, belittling all the dangers, I descended into this hostile valley." Verse 14. Knowing the prince's purpose, the rebel was filled with rage and, clenching his fist, said, "I hate you, Melchizedek." Y'all hear that? Melchizedek ain't done nothing to him. People like this hate you for no reason. There's no reason for them to hate you. See? Do y'all see that around here? These people hate me just because I'm me. Man. And they got the nerve to say that this book of Melchizedek is not canon, is not Bible, the Most High didn't write it, where'd you get that? And they doing the very things in here to prove that it is. You idiots on here are proving it's truth by your unfeigned ignorance and your nuclear level bullshit. You prove it. yet they deny what they're living out in actuality. It's crazy. Man. Verse 16. Having said this, he threw the scepter to the ground and stomping on it, added, I have the desire to do the same with you. In front of that affront, the prince felt no fear, but compassion, transporting himself to the happy past. He remembered the moments in which he always had Samael by his side. He was a pure and humble young man of heart. See, Melchizedek is seeing Samael for who he showed him he was. That wasn't him. See, this is the danger of trying to keep giving people a chance that they didn't show you who they are. His mind went to the past and started thinking about the old Samael, and this is why. See, but as a priest, he got to keep trying to see the best in people, man. You know? He needed a nigga like me back there, man, would have told, man, fuck this nigga. He ain't shit. Samael is a bitch, and he ain't gonna change. See? Ain't no redeeming his ass. He wicked as fuck. See, that's what he needed. Samael was a stanky ass nigga. Okay? But Melchizedek didn't have that. Right? Melchizedek was just a beautiful man and a priest that was operating fully in his office, man. That's what I mean when I say they gotta be protected. He was pure. He was a pure and humble young man at heart. Why had he allowed himself to be enslaved by the illusion of pride and selfishness? How painful it was to see that young man who, for his beauty and sympathy, had been honored above all subjects, now ruined by greed. Had it not been for the prince's dream to have beside his glorified throne the one he considered the most precious friend, this tragedy hurt his soul. However, the sad condition of the scepter afflicted him even more, for this had been made as the symbol of all harmony and was being destroyed under the feet of ingratitude. Surprised not to see in Melchizedek's eyes any expression of fear, but of mercy, Samael felt frustrated in his insults that aimed to intimidate him, leading him to give up his mission. Before the dignified position of the prince, who contemplated him in silent pain, he felt shamed. That weakness, however, was banished by the pride that dominated his heart. Then he began to plan something terrible, to humiliate and hurt the prince, making him suffer even more. With the derision he said, Salem's scepter may be yours. If you manage to pay me the price of your ransom. With a gleam in his eyes, the prince asked him, what's the price? Samael, with a mischievous smile, slowly replied, the price is not gold or silver, but pain and blood. You must undress completely of your clothes lying on the floor. You must endure that condition, blows until the sun sets. If you were willing to submit to me without reacting, the scepter will be entirely yours. See, Melchizedek was challenged to let Samael beat him down butt naked without fighting back. That's the price. Verse 26. Shivering at the cruel proposal, the son of Adoniah looked toward the sun that lay distant on a cloud. He then began to lock an intense fight in his heart. At first, the horror of the sacrifice almost dominated him, encouraging him to retire. But the thought of seeing Salem enslaved by rebellion finally led him to the decision to pay the ransom price, surrendering himself of humiliating suffering. Having made the firm decision to rescue the scepter, the prince threw the clothes, placing them on a stone. He lay down immediately on that cold floor, his forehead turned toward the west. Mercilessly, Samael began to scourge him, using the scepter itself as an instrument of torture, moaning at the pain of the blows that made him bleed. The prince kept his eyes fixed on the sun that seemed to stop over the cloud. Stunned by the pain, he finally watched the sun soon set. Encouraged by the approaching victory, he muttered in a low voice, Jerusalem, Salem, from here I will have you. I will have in your arms a precious scepter that in my hands will become an instrument of justice and peace. Hearing the promise the prince made between groans, Samael shouted at him furiously, your suffering will not bring any dawn to Salem, for your hands will never be able to touch in the scepter. After making the affront, Samael took possession of a pointed stone, preparing to deal the last blows. While thinking of Salem's happy victory, Melchizedek felt his right arm being compressed by Samael's feet. Following the rude gesture, a blow that made him contort in agony. His hand had been cruelly dug, beginning to pour abundant blood from the open wounds. That same violence was later unloaded on his left hand. Not enduring the agony caused by those heartbreaking blows, the son of Adoniah, bloody, plunged into the darkness of a deep fainting. Hurt so bad, Melchizedek passed out. This fool took a sharp rock and he bored through his hands, both of them. Popped out the other side. Y'all see the similarity between Melchizedek and Yahushua and what Yahushua had to do? Do you see what happened? See, when King Solomon fell and the kingdom was split, it was no longer two people. Solomon, Samael. King Solomon was Samael because he turned wicked, but he was also Yahushua. So the priest in Yahushua had to come back in the next life and overturn what the spirit of Samael and Solomon did to him when he was a king over all of Israel. This is why Yahushua didn't fight back, because see, it wasn't two parties, it was one. He was guilty of this, so this is why he had to go to the cross and make it right. See, but there's a heavy price to pay. Okay, when you do something against the Most High's kingdom. This is why in 1 Samuel chapter 7, I believe 1 or 2 Samuel chapter 7, where he said that if Solomon goes off, he's going to beat him with the rods of men. And that's what happened. So Yahushua got punished in the same way Melchizedek did. This is the reason why it's called the Order of Melchizedek. All right. So he beat the hell out of him. Samael had his way. He beat him down all day, bored his hand through with the sharp rock. So what happened after all that? Well, gonna have to get with me on the next video. All right. I pray this is edifying to you as it is for me. All right. Barakatah Yahweh B'Shem Mashiach Yahushai, the Water Father, for this edification. Peace and power to your son, your beloved son Yahushai. Thank you, Yahushai, for your sacrifice and what you've done. All right. All praises. Peace and power to the throne, sons and daughters in the elect of Israel. All praises. I will catch y'all on the next go round. It's your King and Shepherd KD, and I'm out. Shalom.